Hi, everyone, and welcome to Digging In with Davis, a quick hit webinar series created just for Kahua users. I'm Davis Ferguson, a solution consultant here at Kahua, and in each 20-minute session, I'll walk you through practical ways to streamline your day-to-day tasks, navigate with confidence, and explore features you may not be using yet, all to help you get even more out of the platform you already know and trust. Let's dive into today's session, keep projects moving, tips to streamline Kahua RFIs and submittals. As always, this session will be recorded and will be available on demand. Before getting too far, I want to remind everybody that with a configurable platform like Kahua, some customers may have unique workflows or configurations that look slightly different than what I'm going to be showing today. That being said, I think all of our users will find some helpful tips in this session. So from the home screen, let's start by navigating to our RFI application. At a glance, I can see a log view of the RFIs for this particular project. This is the default view, and in the last Digging In with Davis, we went over how you could change and manage your log views by pressing this Manage Views button over here in the top left, or I could print off this log view by pressing the print icon over here on the right. Also, for my RFI log view, I have an in-app search feature. This will not only search the title of the RFI, but also the content within it. And I also have the ability to multi-edit some of my RFIs. So I can go ahead and I can select a couple of these. I can press multi-edit up here at the top. The columns shown in this multi-edit view will vary depending on whether you're using the default view or one you've created, but this is a great way to edit multiple RFIs at once without having to jump from record to record. I can also make a change and then select Copy to All to apply that change to all of the fields in that column. Next, I'm going to go ahead and open and edit one of these RFIs. This is an RFI that I have in the draft status, and I've only recently created this one. So let's go ahead and we'll fill out the rest of this RFI together. First, I want to point out that we've recently made some updates and improvements to how our RFI forms are displayed in Kahua, making these much easier to use. The layout has been streamlined, so you'll see less scrolling now that information is organized in a way that makes data entry faster and more intuitive. We've moved critical information higher up on the form. References and media are now right at the top, and there's also a questions section that makes the RFI's questions stand out from the rest of the metadata. So hopefully your RFI records are using this new layout, but if not, reach out to our team and we can get you set up with the new form to have you working more efficiently. So after writing my subject and my question, it's always helpful to attach any kind of references or media documents. Did you know that the references section supports drag and drop? I simply have to open my File Explorer and drag that document into the references section. Kahua will automatically save the file for me as a supporting document without me having to spend time looking for it with the upload button. The same is true for photos in the media section, where I can press the Add Kahua Photo button to import some directly from our Media Manager application. And next, I'm going to set up a simple workflow to have this RFI reviewed and responded to. I can select a primary responder. This is the person ultimately responsible for answering the RFI. Often this is the architect. Depending on how your company is set up, though, this field may auto-populate for you. If I need input from others, I can add any secondary responders as well. This can be consultants or engineers who will provide supporting responses that feed into that final answer. So before I go ahead and select my primary and secondary responders, I want to show what I think is a little bit of an underrated feature that you're going to find in both our RFIs and submittal apps. Down in the details section is this work package that I can turn on. And these are set up in the work packages application and allow me to preset standard responders for primary and secondary responders to automatically populate that information in here. So for this example, I have architectural, structural, and mechanical response or reviews. Notice how if I select architectural review, my primary and secondary responders are going to automatically populate for me. If I scroll down to the bottom of the screen, the response distribution fills out for me automatically as well. And if I delete these and select a different work package, say structural review, the primary responders and the secondary responders are also going to auto-populate again, this time with different contacts. So this could be a great tool to use if you have a few different groups that respond to different categories of RFIs or even submittals, and it's an easy way to remember who has to review what while also saving time in the process. So I'm going to keep this simple and just assign one primary responder and one secondary responder. And I'm going to go ahead and press submit up here at the top. If I scroll down to the bottom of the screen in this tracking section, I can see who this RFI is currently assigned to, when the due date is, and how many days outstanding it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over to a different user profile. This is James's account, the primary responder for this RFI. Notice he received a task to respond to this RFI in the bottom right corner. I'm also in the task application, so I can simply click on this new task that's been sent to me. Notice how as the primary responder, I can see the question, the reference, and the media attachments. There's a place for me to respond. I can also see the secondary responders, and if they provide a response, it's going to be located here. As primary responder, I also have the ability to add in any secondary responders. Maybe I want to loop in my engineer or civil engineer to maybe respond. I have that ability as the primary responder. This can be turned off in settings if needed. I'm going to provide a quick response to this RFI. I'll go ahead and I'll click respond. So now I'm going to jump back over to my own user profile. I'm going to close out of this RFI and refresh it, and I should see James's response populated in here. So if I scroll down, I can see his response in here. It looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this RFI and mark it as complete. But I can also click this caret, and instead of just marking it as complete, I can distribute and mark it complete. This will give me the option to distribute my RFI to my team as an email and also a message in the system, complete with an editable message that I can send out, as well as all my attachments. I also have the ability to copy it to my communications application if needed. And that's the full RFI workflow in Kahua: create, submit, respond, and close. This keeps everything organized with full accountability and documentation along the way. We do have some major enhancements coming soon to these forms in the realm of AI, not just for RFIs, but many of Kahua's apps. And I can't say too much more about this right now, but be sure to register for Kahua's annual conference, Enabling Innovation, at the end of October to hear the latest news. Next, let's take a look at our Submittals app. Timely review and approval of submittals is important to keep a job progressing, but to also ensure long lead items make it to the job site on time. So today we're going to go through creating a submittal item register, building a submittal package, having it reviewed, and finally applying stamps to that submittal. So in the Submittals app, you're going to see two main tabs: submittal packages and submittal items. I'm going to start in the submittal items tab. And to kick things off, I'll go ahead and press new, and I can begin entering items from my submittal registry. But often, submittal registries can be lengthy and contain many items, and it can be tedious to enter each item one by one. But this is where Kahua's import-export function can be really useful. So rather than insert each submittal item individually, I'm going to come back out to my log view, and I can see my export and import buttons here. By pressing export, I'll export an Excel file that's templatized in a format that can be read by Kahua. And with this file, I can quickly input multiple entries at once rather than having to create individual entries. This is pretty ideal for something like a submittal registry that has numerous items. So to save time, I've gone ahead and I've exported one of these files out already, and I've filled it in. I simply have to just press import here. I'm going to select that submittal item registry Excel sheet. And if I press OK, Kahua will import these submittal items directly into this application. Great. This saved me a lot of time, allowed me to populate some submittal items for this next step we're going to go through. So now that I have items in the register, I'll go ahead and switch back to the Submittal Packages tab, and I'll press New to go ahead and create a new package. So in this package form, we'll go ahead and fill in whatever package level info is required. And just like with RFIs, I can turn on this work package if I want to autofill who this submittal is going to be assigned to for the review process. Now we'll scroll down to the submittal items section. And if I click Insert Existing, I'm able to bring in the items from the submittal items register. So if there was something that I still want to add to this that maybe isn't in my submittal item register, I can also just manually insert something here, but no need to do that for this example. So once the items are in, you can open up the more details section for each item if I want to adjust info or attach files, or I can simply attach files in the package reference section. Let's do that now. Scrolling down, I can see my reviewers and my consultant reviewers. They're already set up since I selected a work package, but you could think of these similar to the primary and secondary reviewers like we looked at with RFIs. With submittals, there's some additional logic that we can build into the consultant reviewers section. For example, we can choose whether we want this review process to be sequential or all in parallel. I can also choose if consultant reviewers can see all the responses from the other consultant reviewers. With the package complete, I have a couple workflow options up here at the top. I can press Assign to Coordinator. Maybe if the package wasn't created by the submittal coordinator, I can send a task to a specific person to take ownership. I have Request Submission. This goes to the submitting vendor who provides their submittal. They'll fill in the info, attach their documents, and when they click Submit, it'll go back to the coordinator. Or I can press Submit to Reviewers. Since I created the submittal and I'm the coordinator, I'm just going to go ahead and send this out directly to the reviewers in this example. So since I'm on the distribution list, I'll probably receive a task down here in the bottom right corner in a couple of seconds. Yeah, there it is. And since we already looked at our workflow today, rather than do the same thing with this submittal, I'm going to go ahead and show you one last neat feature I hope many of our customers are using today. So when I scroll down and I take a look at my submittal attachment documents, I can go into the markup view. And when reviewing and marking up submittals, stamps can be enabled in the markup. And I can actually apply a stamp to this specific submittal. So this is a very simple stamp. It just says approved here. There's no dynamic fields or anything like that. I can still resize it, but not a lot of capabilities. But let's take a look at how to set up something a little bit more sophisticated. First, I'll navigate to Configuration, and I'll select Markups up here at the top. Then I'll navigate to the Stamps tab. And to add a new stamp, I just click Add. And I'll go ahead and enter a stamp name. I can select the stamp type. Simple is just a static stamp. It's simply a markup with no dynamic data. That's the kind of stamp we were looking at previously. But I can also create a dynamic stamp. And this can pull in data like the date, the username, the company. All that's done when the stamp is applied. So we chose dynamic. I'm going to upload a stamped JPEG file now. And once the file is uploaded, I can configure those dynamic fields. So looking at our stamp, we have one for project number. Let's come over here to the right and press Add. I can select the field that I want to auto-populate. And now create a text box that'll determine the size and the area that this field can be applied. Go ahead and create one for the user. And also one for date. Notice I have a couple date formats in here. I think this one looks good. So for each of these dynamic fields, I can set the text color. I can choose if I want to enable text wrapping or right justification. I'm going to go ahead and save this stamp. And once my stamp is saved, I have full control over who can use and apply my stamp. Maybe I want to set specific users on my team to use my stamp, or maybe I want to assign a company to use a stamp. Maybe I upload a stamp for the architect, and I want everyone at that architecture firm to be able to use that stamp. By default, if I leave both of these fields blank, everyone can use my stamp. So for this example, I want my stamp to be accessible, so I'm just going to leave both these fields blank. Now, the last setting down at the bottom is the lock modification setting. If I check this stamp, or I'm sorry, if I check this feature, the stamp becomes locked, and after saving it, it can't be moved, resized, or deleted unless I'm a domain administrator. So I'm going to save my changes, and then we're going to jump back over to my package submittals app. So let's click on the stamp markup feature. It doesn't look like it's loaded in here just yet, but if I go ahead and refresh my markup viewer, there it is. So I'll go ahead and apply this stamp over here. And notice the project number, the name, and the date are all being applied and auto-filled for me automatically. And that's the package submittals process in Kahua. You build your item register, you create a package, you run it through submission and review processes, and then you approve with your stamp. Finally, you can complete and distribute the package when you're all done. So today we covered two key processes in Kahua, RFIs and submittals. RFIs keep questions and clarifications flowing between the field and the design team, while submittals ensure materials and products are properly reviewed before installation. So by managing both of these directly in Kahua, you're not only keeping everything in one central place, but you're also ensuring that every exchange is tracked, reviewed, and documented. That means fewer delays, more transparency, and ultimately a smoother project delivery. Before we get into the Q&A section, we wanted to come back and answer a couple of questions we received during our first session. Click less, do more, 5 ways to improve navigation. If you didn't catch that session or want to watch it again, there's a link available in the console. The first question, is there a tutorial for new users? Yes, we do host regular new user trainings. There's going to be a link in the console where you can sign up for new user and domain admin trainings. Also, when you're working in Kahua, you can always press the Help Center button to take you to Kahua's support webpage. Second question is, can reports be exported in formats alternate to .pdf, such as Excel? So I'm going to navigate to our RFI application, and up here there's the Reports button. And in the Reports wizard, if I open up one of these reports and press Download, the caret next to the Download button, I can see the formats that I can download this report in. So just beyond PDF, I also have CSV, Excel files, and also text files. And then the last follow-up question, is Snapshot available out of the box, or is it an add-on? So this is a question related to the project snapshot tool we mentioned during the last episode. And it's a great way to get all of your files and documents and records out of Kahua very easily and as often as you'd like. And the way this project snapshot works is I'll go down to the bottom right here. I click on snapshots. If I click this plus button, I'll have the option to choose which apps I want to create a snapshot of. So rather than watch me do this directly here, I do have one of these snapshots pre-saved. And this is going to download a zip file with individual folders for all of your applications. So if I go into an application like RFIs, in here I can see PDFs of all my RFIs. Not only that, but any kind of attachments or images that have been added to all these RFIs will also be downloaded as well. So back to the original question, whether this is an add-on or part of the basic package, it's going to vary depending on what Kahua version you have. I would say for most of our packages, it is an add-on, but definitely feel free to reach out to your customer success manager to find out exactly if it is included in the standard Kahua offering. Any questions as we can. For those that we don't get to, we'll follow up after either myself or someone from my team. I'm also going to go ahead and put up a quick poll on the screen to see if there's interest in a deeper dive into portable views in Kahua. So go ahead and submit that poll as I get into your questions. All right, so the first question I see here is, can you link asset data to RFIs and submittals? That's a great question. Yes, if you are using Kahua's asset management suite, you can link many documents, including RFIs and submittals, to that asset. So if you go into the asset, take a look within there, you can see that, hey, this asset was on an RFI. You can pull and update your submittal information related to that asset. So there is some interconnectivity there. Another question is, could you let us know how the invoices can be submitted against the PO/contract? That is all handled in the expenses application. Won't be able to demo that today, but if there is a need to maybe do a deep dive into costs, that's a great topic to go into for another session. Is there mobile functionality for RFIs and submittals? That is a great question as well. There is. Kahua's mobile app just recently had some updates. So if you haven't opened it or taken a look at it in a while, I encourage you to re-download it from the App Store. It's seen quite a few improvements, and the functionality of RFIs and submittals is very similar to what we just demoed from the desktop today. Through some more questions here. How do you distinguish between internal submittal review to external submittal review? I'm assuming this is a question related to maybe reviews between your contractors versus review between an owner or an owner's rep. We probably have to take a look at exactly what you're looking to do here. Within RFIs, you could have two separate tabs, things for like pre-construction and construction, or vendor RFIs versus official RFIs. So we may be able to do something similar for you for submittals. Can you make a portable view in communications to flag for attachments? I have to understand what you're looking to do here. The communications app is a place where you can house emails, transmittals, anything like that. So from your email inbox, you can push in emails directly to that communications app. That can also include the attachments to that email as well. So there is a way to get email attachments into that communications app. That could also be another topic for a session. Can anyone create an RFI or submittal report with filters, or do you need permissions? That's a great question. So to use the report wizards, you do need the proper permissions. And then once a report has been created in that report wizard, you can choose whether you want that report to be available to everyone, maybe just you. You can also pick specific groups. So maybe you only want that available to people within your team, none of your contractors or vendors or anything like that. You are able to set up those internal permissions within the report. One question is, how is project email managed? All of the messaging within the system can be managed within the Messages app. We do have an Outlook and a Gmail plugin. So if you are wanting to take emails from your standard inbox, push those into Kahua, you simply have to utilize that plugin. It's a really cool tool and probably a good topic for another session. See, creating the distribution of reviewers for RFIs and submittals. Is this assigned by the creator or the reviewer? It's going to be up to you. I think out of the box, it's the creator is going to set that up. If someone doesn't have the permissions, they shouldn't be able to determine who's going to be the reviewers on that submittal. But if you enable it so that they can, they'll have that option as well. So it's going to be based off of your configuration settings. Is there a separate session for invoice submission navigations? Currently, no. This is only our second session. If there is a desire for that, though, we're certainly open to hearing more topics you'd like us to do digging with Davis sessions on. So if there's a need, we certainly can dive into invoices and costs. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If I didn't get to your question or anything like that, I'm not ignoring you. Just maybe it's more account specific or something like that. And someone from our team will reach out and make sure you do get an answer there. Before we do go, though, I want to share a couple of quick announcements to keep you up to date on the happenings, enhancements, and more within Kahua. First, Kahua's annual conference, Enabling Innovation, is coming up on October 20th to the 23rd. And it's going to be one of our best ones to date. On the first day, we're hosting a technical admin and user training camp to help new users and experts alike master Kahua. And for the next 2.5 days, it's going to be a mixture of sessions led by both Kahua customers and Kahua subject matter experts. So be sure to register now by reaching out to your customer success manager or express interest by clicking the link in the console. I'll also be at EI, so if you're there, feel free to reach out and say hello. We'd also like to invite you to our first annual Build Forward virtual conference on December 4th. This is a free half-day event and features a series of short, high-impact sessions across 2 tracks, broader construction insights and tools and technology. And it's all intended to help you work smarter across the entire project lifecycle. So register for this free event using the link in the resource console or by clicking the pop-up after event. And then lastly, we'd love for you to leave us a review on Capterra or G2, letting others in the industry know about your experience with Kahua. You'll get a $25 Amazon gift card for each review left, so that's $50 in total. You can access those listings from the console as well. With that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you again for joining Digging with Davis, and stay tuned for future episodes.